In all of our lives, we have work, we have family, and we have play. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to give up one of those.
An expert in entrepreneurship, Albert Napoli is one of the highest rated professors at USC.
Most people are dreamers and not entrepreneurs.
What has that taught you about the relationship between money and happiness?
This is a great conversation. And what it's taught me is you're trying to get rich quick, you're not.
Albert, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for welcoming me.
Of course. So I was thinking about where to start this conversation. And so I decided a few weeks back to kind of survey some of your previous students to ask them what's kind of like the one main thing that they remember from your class. Maybe it's a saying, maybe it's something that you were taught. And 5 out of the 6 of them said the exact same thing. And I'm curious if you have any guesses as to what that might be.
Let me guess. Your network is your net worth.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Your network is your net worth.
That's right.
What does that mean, and why is it so important to drill into students' minds?
Especially a lot of people, especially when you're young, you think, I need to do this myself. I'm, a solo founder, a solo whatever. And the truth of the matter is that you get where you are because people will help you along the way. And the more people you know, the more people will help you. I think I'm like Forrest Gump, not that bright, but really cool stuff happens to me. And it happens to me because of this network that I have. And the network, that word sometimes feels a little scummy and dirty, and it has some negative connotations to it. And I understand that. But when you approach someone, people truly wanting to get to know them, to be part of your life, to say, wow, Mark is a pretty interesting guy, and I truly think he's a great guy, and I want him to be part of my life in a genuine way. Not what can I get from you, but what I'm going to be in the midst of greatness. People really resonate with that, and when I've asked for help, everyone has always been yes. I'll help you with whatever it is. And so to put that kind of thought into my students' mind early so that they can actually achieve whatever goals they want to achieve, I think is very vital.
I think you mentioned, I think you nailed it, like networking sometimes does have a bad reputation,
right,
especially when people kind of learn about what it is.
Right.
People think that you need to blast out 500 LinkedIn messages to a bunch of people and ask to be mentored and asked to kind of set up like recurring calls maybe, and then, set up a CRM where they reach out every few months to send them an article. And it all seems sort of transactional.
Right.
And that's obviously not the right way to think about it, especially when you think about it like, what can I achieve by having this person in my network? Maybe it's an internship, maybe it's an investment. What would you say is the proper way to approach kind of building and maintaining your network in a way that doesn't feel transactional?
So it's truly having a curious mind. I find every single person I meet interesting. I love people's history, their background, how they got to where they are today, no matter what position they are, whether they're the CEO of a major corporation or they're on the custodial staff. I'm just really genuinely interested. And I never talk to anybody to say with the thought of what can I get from him or her? It's always like, is this a cool person? And when you approach a relationship with that type of authenticity and never asking for anything, people are drawn to you. And I always make our relationship about the other person. So network is like, I should probably change that network name out of it because it does feel like you need to take a shower after you go to a networking event. But there's nothing else that rhymes with net worth. But anyway, and the way it's transactional is, I make it not transactional, is by being genuine. And so from little things like, say, instead of keeping track of people's birthdays and other major milestones in their lives, actually texting them or emailing them with, instead of saying, oh, happy birthday, Mark. It's like, oh, happy birthday, Mark. I really appreciate the last time we were together. We did the podcast. I really enjoyed the vibe that you have, and make it something very sincere. Um, and just really try to keep in contact. It's really hard, but if I know you mentioned systems earlier, but you maybe have to put up some systems, especially as your network expands. But just being authentic.
Yeah, that's one that reminds me of one of like the principles and how to win friends and influence people is to become genuinely interested in that person. And I think if you can find that one small thing that you are actually interested in that person, it can, make that conversation 10 times better. And, later on, if you reach out with some kind of small thing, like you mentioned about the happy birthday and, some other kind of thing you remembered about them, to you, that seems small, but to them, it's a pretty significant thing that they were remembered in that way.
Right.
You can think back to any time that someone had reached out to you with that, and you probably felt great that they had that thing to remember you about.
Of course, every single person on this planet wants to be acknowledged. And if you are acknowledged, and if you can be acknowledged without any strings attached, that's the greatest feeling in the world, because you feel it's genuine.
Another thing I wanted to kind of talk about here, you have the highest RateMyProfessor reviews out of any USC professor I've ever seen, which is a go-to tool for any student, not even at USC. And so I wanted to read some of these to you and kind of get some thoughts about what's happening in your class.
Okay, so caveat here, I write
course.
most of those reviews, okay? Just kidding.
Absolutely. So he knew all of our names in the first week of class. Professor Napoli is the GOAT. That's a word that comes up a lot in these reviews. There's not enough good things to say about the guy. He's not only a great professor, but a fantastic mentor and a caring friend. Honestly, one of the only classes I look forward to. The work is very hands-on and teaches you a lot about the reality of joining a family business. It's also free therapy. Highly, highly recommend. You hold students to a very high standard, and you will accomplish things in class you never thought you were capable of. I thought that was a great one. What do you do in class that creates such positive reception, and why do you think people enjoy the class so much?
Well, so all of this was not by design, by any stretch of the imagination. When I first started teaching, I was 1 year out from getting my MBA, and my mind is not wired like an academic. I think I'm like everyone in your age. I think I have undiagnosed ADHD, and so to sit in a class and just to hear someone drone on and drone on and drone on and then take a test. I mean, there's why would you even come? So I felt that you needed to be, or I needed to be engaging to make people not fall asleep during class. Then the other thing too, this goes back to what we talked about just a few minutes ago. I truly care about everyone that's in my life. And I know it sounds perhaps a little woohoo, but my students, I feel that they are, I won't quite say my children, although I call them my children, but like a family member that I want to help. And so I am one of those lucky people that found their passion accidentally. So I love teaching. I love helping. I love helping people realize what their potential is. And I care for everyone. I mean, you were in my class. What do you feel?
So I think it all kind of boils down to, as you mentioned, helping people realize their potential. And by the way that you do that, I've experienced is by kind of putting people in uncomfortable situations that they end up growing through. So anything from, it starts out with the beginning of class where if you come late, you might end up singing in front of everybody. That's right. And so that's kind of a funny example right at the beginning. And, people are horrified when they might have to do that. But at the end, people just laugh and you carry on with your life and no one it always ends up being okay. Or maybe one of the more kind of business examples is the requirement to go out and do customer discovery.
Yes.
And so I, during my class with you, went out to the Manhattan Beach Pier and set up a table with my co-founder in this business. And we created this coconut water cocktail that we brewed up in the car right before class, and we gave samples out to people.
Right.
And we learned a lot about that. I had a friend who sat in a wine store. I don't know why all these are alcohol related, but I guess where college students' minds
Right,
go.
exactly.
And so by doing that, you learn a ton about yourself, and you come out the other end empowered to do that.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of one of the most key things about your class that people enjoy about it the
Yeah,
most. Do you,
absolutely. I mean, and the other thing too is, don't go for the dopamine hit. I want if you're bored with what we're talking about, I want you to be bored. I don't
Mhm.
want you on your phone. Be bored because that's where ideas are born. And I teach in entrepreneurship, and so be bored so ideas come to you about your next business or your next venture.
It's actually a perfect segue because you set the stage for what the class looks like, why everybody's so excited about it, what the rules are. But now we can talk a little bit about what's actually being discussed in the class, which
Hmm.
again is a lot of the entrepreneurial ideas. And so, what are some of like the most classic ideas that a lot of college kids have that you might have heard a million times? Maybe some kind of pitfall ideas. I think would be fun to talk about.
Geez, let's see. Well, for a while, everything I have this idea with blockchain.
Mhm.
Then I have this idea with cannabis slash CBD. Then I have this idea about NFTs. Now everyone has an idea about AI,
Of
even though
course,
they don't really understand how AI works. And then the great ones are like, I have this idea about blockchain with AI
and cannabis.
and cannabis, exactly. And so, what I try to tell everyone, there's no original idea. Every idea, I run the New Venture Seed competition on campus that has, 400 applicants per year. So I've seen the basics of almost every single idea. And, my job is never to say, Mark, that's idea is stupid.
Mhm.
But I ask a series of questions to see if you think the idea is stupid or not. I can't say an idea is stupid because if 15 years ago, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I have this idea for a social media um, platform where you can post a picture and after 5, 10 seconds it'll disappear forever," I'd say, you're smoking crack,
Mhm.
and I would be completely wrong because Snapchat obviously is here. Um, but I push people to kind of think about things logically, pragmatically, um, and by doing what most students hate is customer discovery. That crazy thing of talking to your customers to see if they want your product or
Mhm.
service. Um, so there's I just keep it really simple. I say, you have a very simple idea. Why isn't it on the market? And if you can't answer that question, then there's probably a reason, and it's probably because it doesn't make any money or nobody wants it.
Mhm.
Or somebody wants it but won't pay money for it.
Yeah. I think another really common pitfall is just thinking about things that would be cool, but might not be good businesses, right? So
Exactly.
maybe it'd be great to kind of, have an app that helps me meet more friends in college.
Right.
And that might work. A lot of people would probably love that, but if there's not a good way to monetize it to keep you floating, then
Right.
it might not survive. Um, what are some of the ways to kind of, again, you mentioned customer discovery as a way to
Mhm.
battle test these ideas. What is kind of the playbook for customer discovery? Because I think a lot of people will go in, like myself, and sort of try to validate their idea rather than trying
Correct.
to help the customer teach them something they might have
Correct.
not known. So, what's kind of the proper way to approach that? And maybe some of those questions that you might ask in
Sure. So
those interviews.
let me just start out that there's a book out there called The Mom Test that
Hmm.
is about 15 years old now. That is a really great book on customer discovery. And customer discovery isn't, "Hey Mark, do you like this bottle?" I mean, you may say yes or you may say no. And if you say yes, do you like the colors? Yes, and you think, "Oh my God, I have a business," where you'd say, "Yeah, I like it, but I'd never buy it." So customer discovery is actually going out and asking someone about kind of like the day in the life of that revolves around this problem that you're trying to solve. So, so instead of saying, "Mark, do you like this water?" say, I would ask you, "So, Mark, tell me about hydration. How do you hydrate?" "Oh, I like bottled water." "Really? Why do you like bottled water?" I like it for this reason, this reason.
Mm.
That's interesting, and asking open-ended questions that on the subject matter um, that are as unbiased as possible, that are not leading to the answer you want. And what you're hoping to hear is, okay, here's the pain. Pain is I want high quality water that tastes good. And so, okay, Fiji is, I'll make Fiji.
Mhm.
Um, if you say, if enough people say, I want high quality water in a bottle, then you might have a company. But if you have people that say, tap is great, why would I spend, $3 on this bottle? Then you may say, well, I'm either not talking to the right customer or I may not have a business.
Mhm. What's really important throughout that process is just being willing to part ways with your original idea.
Mhm.
I've had so many times where I'm laying in bed and I think I've, struck gold and found lightning in a bottle, and I whip out my notes app to make sure that I remember the next day. And then I will kind of think about that for a while. And maybe I'll talk to some people and only kind of pursue things that affirm that, when in reality, the stronger move there, the better move is using the reception that customers tell you to kind of figure out how can I redefine this hypothesis that what people might want.
And you want to talk to you want to talk to strangers who you believe are your customers, and your customers
Mhm.
are not everyone. Regardless of the product, with very, very few exceptions, your customer is not everyone. It's a very select group, and you need to talk. You can't talk to friends or family because they'll either say, "Oh my God, this is the greatest idea in the world," and if it's your fraternity bros, they'll say, "Ah, you're an idiot." So completely biased. So that's why you specifically want to go out into the wild and talk to those customers.
Mhm. I'm sure time and time again, when your students actually go ahead and do that, they come back, feeling empowered to do it again. They said they might have some funny stories about what they
Right.
went through. I'm sure it's a great class.
Yeah.
Uh,
In fact, in this last class, there was a team that was looking to have a platform to help brides connect with content creators for social media for their weddings, and and they went to bridal stores to talk to brides, and they started talking to a couple, and they were kicked out. And so it wasn't too traumatizing,
yeah.
but like you said, these are battle scars that will make them stronger in the future.
I'm sure you've heard a lot of ideas from people. I think one of the superpowers of someone who isn't very familiar with the entrepreneurial world is that they're not very familiar with the entrepreneurial world, and so you can you can think outside the box.
Right.
What are some of the most unique, crazy ideas that you've heard from students that you think you better pursue that, and if you don't, I will, or someone should?
So actually one that came up was basically a Fitbit for your dog. In this world, as you know, there are pet owners and there are pet parents.
Mhm.
And those pet parents will spend a ton of money for their um, four-legged children, as they call them. And we monitor everything about those pet parents monitor everything about their dog, what they eat, when they eat, just everything. And why not say, okay, how is my dog doing health wise between vet visits? And I thought, wow, that's pretty good.
Mhm.
I would do that one.
What percentage of the ideas that people incubate do you think are pursued outside of the semester when it ends?
I would say very few
Mm.
because for a variety of different reasons, um, but very few.
Mhm.
The ones that do pursue them and usually they have to pivot along the way are the ones that become successful and actually have an exit.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember there was one, someone came into class who's a former student of yours, and she had a product for African American woman's hair,
Yes.
sort of like an oil.
Yes.
How's she doing?
Shamila's doing
Yeah.
great. She's based in Dallas. She's still doing it kind of as a side hustle because she
Mhm.
had to get a job, but she's actually doing really great and has expanded. I mean, if you remember her The beard oil was based on ingredients that are found in Uganda, which is her home country, and she's found that people really resonate with kind of that African Ugandan culture,
Hmm.
and has now manufactured different teas, which is completely different than beard oil, and is doing really well with that as well. So
Hmm.
she's doing awesome.
You mentioned something that she's kind of doing on the side, and that reminded me. How important is it for the success of a company, would you say, in going like all in on your venture versus a lot of people will say to sort of start kind of incubating your idea maybe on the side, on the off hours, during your 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5? What's kind of like the right way to think about pursuing an idea and then when to go all in on it?
In a perfect world, I would say, you're 18 to 25 years old. Hopefully, you're not married. Hopefully, you don't have children. Hopefully, you don't have a mortgage, and you have very little to lose. So why not go all in right there? Just because you can always get an entry level job anyplace else. Regardless of where you go to school, if you're smart, if you've networked,
Hmm.
you can always get a job. Now, the reality is there are some families that you have to go to work, and that's
Hmm.
no shame on them. That's no shade, as the kids would say. But it's just something that they have to do. Having a so whether you're going all in at first or you're having a side hustle, the hard thing about entrepreneurship at first is there's no deadlines. A lot of times there's no one to hold you accountable. So things just kind of linger and wander. Whichever way you choose to do it, you have to be very disciplined. You have to say, I am going to I am going to devote time to it. If you do it as a side hustle, you have to be really organized, really disciplined, because when you get a job, especially when you're your first job, you have to work really, really hard, and you're competing against other people, and you have other activities, and so you have to be disciplined, and it's really, 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 really hard, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people just don't pursue it.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just easier to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Um, Live in Santa Monica, go to the bungalow, lease a BMW,
What
just
could
like
be better?
what could be better? I mean, right? So it's hard.
So we talked a little bit about what's happening in the classroom, but now you have sort of this new pursuit that you're working on, Titan Education. Can you
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about what Titan Education is and when you started it?
Sure. So one of my friends, his name is David Lee, not the basketball player,
Hmm.
but for your car enthusiast, he's David Lee, Ferrari collector, and he too uh, was a USC student. He's an alum. He went after he graduated in the early '90s. He went and took his family's business from a wholesale J jewelry store, and he sells all kinds of jewelry, but he's known for the watches. Probably sells 3,000 Rolex watches a year in just two stores. Um, he has a Ferrari collection that is probably worth anywhere between 50 to $100 million. He's incredibly successful, and both he and I are friends, and he and I are constantly getting people that want our time beyond just, hey, can I run something by you, but want mentorship. And so we came together and said, let's form this Titan Education, which is for young, high income, high net worth individuals who have outgrown their friends, they've outgrown um, their mentors, and they need somebody who who can help them both personally and professionally deal with different life issues. So with Titan, we meet every week via Zoom. Our members are literally all over the world, India, Canada, throughout the United States, and every month we have a theme, and every week we delve into that theme.
Hmm.
We also hold them accountable. So every quarter, we look at their financials and say, "Wow,
And this is of their business or their personal financials?
of their business."
So-
And we comment on their financials. Why you're doing this? Why you do this? Why you're not doing this?
Mhm.
They can they We talk about personal stuff from relationships with your spouse, to how do you deal with wealth and giving it to your children.
So you kind of have the younger generation that you're helping incubate, and then
Hmm.
these are people that are kind of farther along. You're helping them with their existing business ventures and life problems that might come along with
Correct.
them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
to be clear, these are not companies where you're sort of investing in them. It's sort of like
No,
a paid membership kind of thing.
it's a paid membership. We're not looking for equity. We're not. This is just we have all this knowledge. We love doing this,
Hmm.
and these our students, our mentees, um, want us as guidance, and they want the community as a soundboard, um, and they just want to be able to say anything and have the other person understand.
One of the things that you talk about on the website of 10 Education is helping people kind of find the elements to craft a fulfilling life. And I'm
Hmm.
sure that's especially relevant when you have people that are earning a lot of money and they're trying to figure out kind of where does all this money now fit into my fulfilling life?
Right.
What are kind of like the elements, would you say, of a fulfilling life, and something that you guys talk about at Titan Education?
Well, we are a little bit different than like what I call that entrepreneurship porn that you find on social media, where it's like
Hmm.
grind, 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 make as much money as you can, as quick as you
Yeah.
can. We don't necessarily say get rich slow, but we say be methodical about it. We have these people that are making a lot of money, and they're like, oh, we want to expand by, double our business, or we want to buy this business and that business. And we say, that's great, but why? And well, it's to make more money. And it's almost like customer discovery.
Mm.
We ask them, okay, how is that going to change your life? I mean, do you want to buy a yacht and do you want to buy a private plane? No. Then, okay, how is this going to change your life? How is this going to take away from your personal life? Because something's got to give. And so we kind of mentor them into saying, look at your life holistically. You want to, you want everything, but something's going to have to give. And how much are you willing to give?
Hmm.
So it's not just go out and make money. Yes, go double down, go spend more time away from your family. Um, it's again the whole picture.
It honestly reminds me a lot of what we were talking about earlier with helping college students figure out if their idea is worth pursuing versus whether this acquisition is worth pursuing, kind of on
Correct.
the larger business sense. And to be clear, what are some kind of examples of the businesses here? Are these like software companies? Do you have some like retail brick and mortar locations, mix of everything, or
We have a mix of everything from a trucking company to a um, shoe wholesale manufacturer to a poke restaurant chain, to real estate, to kind of a conglomerate that has a whole bunch of different retail businesses. Software is in there as well. So it runs the gamut,
Mhm.
regardless of what industry you're in. As an entrepreneur, you face the same challenges. How do I make payroll? How do I keep how do I spend enough time with my family? How do I run my business efficiently? Am I hiring the right person? How do I hire key positions? So although the industries are completely different, the problems are the same.
Mhm. So moving a little bit away from kind of the business advice, I'm sure you hear from a lot of entrepreneurs that you talked about from your own experience. One of the things I like to ask all my guests is how has, as you sort of made money in your career,
Hmm.
and talked to many people that have made money in their career, what has that taught you about the relationship between money and happiness?
This is a great, great conversation. And what it's taught me is a bunch of things. You have to really understand what your relationship is with money, psychologically, what it is. A fellow Trojan, Morgan Housel, wrote
Hmm.
The Psychology of Money.
It's a great book.
Great book that really kind of explains how people deal with money. And what I learned was that when you're young, you want to buy everything and just, flex. Um, and as I gotten older, flexing is less important. spending your money wisely on things that matter. So to me, experiences matter. So I will spend more to go on a trip, to do things with my children, as opposed to just buying stuff. Money, money cannot buy love.
Mhm.
You can lease it for a little bit, but you can't buy it. In my family business class, I have I bring in a student that his father was ultra wealthy, but never at home, and it really played with his psyche a lot. Even though he could have anything he wanted, fly private, use yachts, anything, it messed with him. So money doesn't lead to happiness, but it is a tool that you can use to create an atmosphere for you of happiness. I know it sounds perhaps contradictory,
Mhm.
but if I know that I have enough money to live a lifestyle I want, I'm I'm calm, you know. And again, as we tell our students, how is that going to change your life?
Mhm.
How is pursuing more money going to change your life? What do you want? What is your goal? And if it's just to make as much money as possible, that's not a great goal.
One of the things that I think about recently is if I, driving home from work and I'm getting in my Nissan Murano. If I was getting in
That's a hot car, by
yeah,
the way.
if I was getting in a Lamborghini or Range Rover, that wouldn't really change anything. That wouldn't change the fact that I might be like stressed about work or I'm thinking about this or that. It's just a different, vessel to take me home.
Right.
And it wouldn't change anything about my, baseline happiness.
Right, exactly. And would a Lamborghini be fun to drive? Would it be cool to have?
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, is it going to make you happier?
Mhm.
Maybe while you drive it, maybe while it's in the garage and you can stare at it, maybe. But otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also another thing to point out there, again, going back to Morgan Housel, is that there's probably some people out there who that Lamborghini is the thing they've been working for their entire life, and they achieve it, and it does give them,
Right.
years and years of happiness, and that's awesome. And there's kind of just different things that satisfy people, and everyone sort of just, as you mentioned, has to figure out what their own relationship is with it, and just be kind of conscious that you're not accidentally pursuing somebody else's dream of what you should be
Correct.
doing.
Exactly. And again, that goes back to social media and why one of the million reasons why I think social media is bad is you're looking at other people's dreams. The other thing is you're looking at other people, what you see outside of other people, and not what they're feeling inside or what they had to go through in order to get that Lamborghini
Hmm.
or that big house or that plane, because there is a lot of sacrifice involved, more than most people are willing to give.
Yeah, exactly. And it also can seem, you might see those posts, you might see, as you mentioned, the entrepreneurship porn that makes everything seem so simple. And you
Right.
can watch how to start drop shipping in 2 months video. And then 2 months later, if you're not rolling in money, you feel like you messed something up.
Right. It's you, not the whole system.
Exactly.
Right.
Have you ever had students come into your class that maybe you could tell were exposed to that kind of world and just sort of have a messed up view of what entrepreneurship is?
Oh yeah, I absolutely. And they're like, oh, but everyone's doing it. It can be done. And my response is yes, of course it can be done. But let's think about it realistically, think about it pragmatically. How many people are making money doing X, Y, or Z? Or are they just struggling along? Show me proof of who's done it. And they
Mhm.
always say, oh, the guy who started this. I go, that's great. He started this dropship company, but now he's going to charge you $99 a month for his thing
Yeah.
that he's going to tell you how to do it. And if you're not doing it, then you're probably doing something wrong. Not the system, but you. And I see that a lot. And I try to tell them, you're trying to get rich quick. You're not.
Hmm.
And some people believe me and some people don't. I compare high level athletes with entrepreneurs because if you're on a football team, you spend day in and day out doing drills. And everyone I talk to hates doing drills, but doing those drills makes you better. It makes you better on the field when you're playing. And entrepreneurship is exactly that. It's doing the mundane, boring stuff that most people don't want to do day in and day out, dealing with stress so that when you compete, you win.
So I think a lot of young people, as they're considering, pursuing entrepreneurship or staying in their career, are really scared of, as we were talking about earlier, this leap to leave your W-2 salary,
Mhm.
where time can be lost, money can be lost, but they really have this gut feeling that what they're pursuing is worth pursuing. What would you advise to someone if they were really passionate about entrepreneurship and wanting to consider an idea, but they just were struggling to stomach the financial risk?
Start off with, what are you willing to give up? If they're not willing to give up a paycheck, that's great. That means they have to give up time. They're not willing to give up time, not doing it after work, then they have to give up, perhaps their paycheck. And this goes back to, your network is your net worth. Um, what can they do to mitigate that financial risk? If they're married, will their partner say, yes, I'll help support? I mean, my father became a really successful entrepreneur solely for the fact that my mother was a teacher. And so growing up, we had her steady income and we had insurance through her. So my dad didn't have to worry about that and was able to pursue entrepreneurship. Now, if you don't have that, if you're young before that, what is the sacrifice that you want to make? Can your parents help support you? Are you willing to move back in with them to save money?
Mm.
Some people are, some people aren't. Okay, whatever. If you want to be independent of your parents, which a lot of people do, which is great, then you have to give up your time. And basically, when you're doing entrepreneurial work, well, in all of our lives, we have work, we have family, and we have play. And play includes girlfriends dating or boyfriends and dating and stuff like that. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to give up one of those three. And which one is it? And that's why a lot of successful entrepreneurs, when they're young, don't have a significant other. So it's all a matter of what are you willing to give up, and you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're young. If you keep saying, "I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to this entrepreneurial idea one day," things happen. Like maybe somebody else comes along and not steals your idea, but executes on it in a way that you would want to have executed on it. Um, you know, you get you get again married, and now you have responsibilities, and taking that risk now is incredibly high. So things happen, and you just have to again say, what am I willing to give up? Because most people are dreamers and not entrepreneurs. Dreamers keep thinking. I have lots of friends that say, "Oh, I have this great idea," and they keep coming up with great ideas, but will never act on them. Again, and some of it is because they're just risk averse. Some of them is going back to psychology of money. The way they look at money. Oh my God, I'll never have it again. And again, I say when you're young, all things being equal, take the risk. You have very little downside.
Mm-hmm. My advice there would be to just take the smallest possible step in that direction and just see what happens. Set up that phone call, go check out that place, interview that person, and you kind of just get the ball rolling. Because the hardest part is just going from idea to any sort of action. And if you keep pursuing that, sometimes the universe sort of conspires to help you.
Absolutely, and one of the other things I say in class all the time is be a person of action.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a person of action, it seems that luck finds you. If you just wait and wait and wait and wait for divine intervention, it's not going to happen. Entrepreneurship is hard, and if you talk to most entrepreneurs, a lot of them will tell you, if I know now if I had known then what I know now, I would never have been an entrepreneur because it's so hard. Mm-hmm. And but if you continue to take that step, it keeps getting easier.
I think that's a quote similar to what Jensen Huang from NVIDIA said. Now, rocket ship growth in the past couple of years, and that's exactly what someone asked him, how would you build NVIDIA differently, knowing what you know now? And he just said, I wouldn't have built it.
Right, exactly.
No rational person would want to put themselves through all that unless they have an extreme amount of passion for what they're building. Even in hindsight, knowing that it would be successful, he still said he might have not built it.
Well, it makes you who you are today. I mean, all of
Mhm.
these life experiences, especially if you're successful, makes you who you are today. And if you're not successful, success is not permanent. Excuse me, failure is not permanent, and neither is success for that matter. And so, if you can just keep going, um, you know, a lot of people are afraid to take that step to be a person of action. But you're never going to be fearless. But if you wrap your arms around that fear and just keep pushing through it, you'll see that amazing things will happen.
Mhm. And again, that goes back to the ideas you're seeding in class, which is
Mhm.
embrace fear, embrace discomfort, and great things will happen.
Right. No growth happens while you're complacent.
Exactly. As we unfortunately kind of wrap up here,
Already?
and we're at the hour. I'm curious if you have any sort of lasting message. If you could, send a message to the next generation of entrepreneurs, one single piece of your best advice, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially when you're young. People my age will definitely want to help. Ask for help, push through fear, uh, be driven, be coachable. I love your generation, love, love, love your generation. But like all generations, they have their quirks. And one of the things that my generation did to mess up your generation is we set your life up as a rubric to be a perfect human being through high school so you can get to the best colleges, so then you can get the best jobs. And along the way, as parents, we remove all roadblocks to failure. And so you graduate, and I think a lot of the reason why people your age perhaps are more afraid now of entrepreneurship than ever before is because you've never failed. And you don't know what that feels like. You don't know. You think it's again final and fatal, but don't be afraid to fail.
Hmm.
You won't have to wear a scarlet letter for the rest of your life saying, I founded a company and it dissolved.
Hmm. I think that's also a shame because I'm curious if you agree with this. It also seems like it's never been more accessible to pursue entrepreneurship than it has been for previous generations with the, amount of seed competitions and venture capital money and incubators. Do you think that's accurate? That
That
recently has been.
It's 1,000,000% accurate. I mean, and even before that part, I mean, between content that is available for free on on anything from YouTube to even Khan Academy to leveraging AI to help you think about and come, and think about and build like a business model canvas. If you don't know what that is, but if your viewers don't, look it up. But to build a business model canvas to help with marketing, I mean, there's so many tools out there for free that there's no excuse. Now, what I hear a lot of is, well, I don't have the money. If you have a great idea and you're a great person with a great team, you will find the money doing a whole bunch of different things, like you mentioned, through competitions, through incubators, through angel investors, through friends and family. There are ways to find the money.
Well, Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was fantastic.
Well, thank you, Mark. This was great. I loved our conversation about everything entrepreneurship.
Likewise. Thanks for coming on.